You wake up tired. It's not just the kind of tired that a strong coffee or a weekend nap can solve. It's a kind of weariness that sits deeper in the part of you that keeps trying to prove you belong here. The part that quietly believes you're only as good as what you can produce. You check your phone before you even sit up. Notifications, reminders, a half-read email you flagged last night for later. Your eyes haven't adjusted yet, but your brain's already spinning. What's due? What's behind? What's next? There's no alarm loud enough to override the one already going off inside you. You've lived in this rhythm for years, always on, always earning. You hustle because that's how you survive. You over-deliver because you've convinced yourself there's no such thing as safe enough. Even when you're praised, part of you wonders how long until they find someone better. And so, you never really let go. Not even on weekends. Not even on vacation. You answer Slack messages from the beach. You reply to emails just so it's off your plate. You say you're doing it for peace of mind, but really, it's because the idea of being seen as idle makes your skin itch. You weren't born this way. It was taught, rewarded, reinforced in tiny ways. You're so responsible. You're such a go-getter. You never stop. And eventually, those compliments became your compass. In Stoic philosophy, there's a phrase, summum bonum, the highest good. Marcus Aurelius believed it wasn't status or productivity, but virtue expressed through action. But you've been told that the highest good is usefulness, that your existence must always pay rent. You didn't mean to internalize that. It just happened. Through grades, through side hustles, through the unspoken rule that rest is earned, not inherent. And now, even when your body says, stop, your brain whispers, keep going, or they'll forget you exist. You don't know who they is anymore, but the fear still lands. You remember a time in college when you stayed up all night helping a friend move apartments and then went straight to work without sleeping. People called you a hero. You basked in it. But looking back, you wonder why no one asked. Why did you think you had to do that? Because deep down, you think if you stop being useful, you'll be replaced, outpaced, outloved. You've built a life around being the reliable one, the over-functioner, the person who always gets it done. And somewhere along the line, you started to mistake your output for your identity. And that's why rest feels wrong. Not boring wrong, because stopping makes you feel invisible. Like if you're not actively contributing, you're vanishing. You heard a quote once, buried in an old book, the machine will run you even when you are no longer running it. You underlined it even though you didn't fully understand it then. Now you do. You're starting to see how much of your energy goes towards staying relevant at work, online, in conversations. Not growing, just not fading. And the question that follows you around, like a shadow, if I'm not useful, am I anything at all? You've never said that out loud, but you've felt it. In the guilt of doing nothing, in the awkwardness of being still, in the way you apologize for just relaxing. You lie back on the bed phone, face down this time. A small rebellion. You stare at the ceiling like it might offer a different answer than yesterday. You wonder what it would mean to live a day without proving anything. Not because you've earned it, just because you're human. The thought feels radical and a little sad because you realize you don't know how to do that yet. But maybe that's okay. Maybe tonight isn't about fixing it. Maybe it's just about finally admitting what you've been carrying and letting yourself set it down, if only for a while. You finally sit down. No emails, no meetings, no calls coming in. Just you, a couch, and the soft hum of the afternoon leaking through the windows. But instead of feeling relaxed, you feel itchy. Not physically, internally. Like your nervous system just realized it's unsupervised. You glance at your phone, not to check anything in particular, just to prove you're still connected. Just to remind yourself that the world hasn't forgotten you in the 5 minutes you've been still. You tell yourself this is your break. You deserve it. You've earned it. But even as you sink into the cushion, a whisper climbs up the back of your mind. You should be doing something. It's ridiculous, isn't it? You know this moment is supposed to be good for you. You've read the think pieces, listened to the podcasts. We all need to unplug, they say. But no one tells you what to do with the guilt that shows up the second you actually try. It's not even a loud guilt, just a dull hum, like background noise from another room. You pick up a book but can't focus. You consider going for a walk but feel silly without a destination. You stare at the ceiling and feel like you're watching time decay. The silence doesn't feel soft, it feels accusatory. In Buddhism, there's the idea of the hungry ghost, a being that craves endlessly but can never be satisfied. That's how this guilt feels. It doesn't want rest. It wants reassurance that you're still valuable, that you haven't fallen behind. You once read that Charles Darwin, even at the height of his work, took long, meandering walks every afternoon in his garden, not for fitness, not for inspiration, just because. You wonder if that would feel irresponsible now. You've been conditioned to associate stillness with risk, that if you pause too long, you'll lose momentum, that someone else will pass you, that you'll wake up irrelevant. You scroll through your mind like an inbox. Should I reorganize the pantry? Should I check in on that spreadsheet? Should I post something just to stay visible? Even your leisure is haunted by usefulness. And the cruelest part, when you finally do rest, you feel like you're wasting something. Time, energy, potential. Like relaxation is only valid if you're exhausted beyond repair. You start to wonder, what does rest even mean anymore if it only counts when you're broken? That question lingers. You stretch your legs out, trying to breathe slower. But even your breath feels suspicious, too deep, too free. You're so used to running, you've forgotten how to just be. There's a memory that surfaces of sitting on the porch as a kid, just watching ants carry crumbs back to their colony. No urgency, no goal, just watching, just being. That version of you wasn't guilty. That version just existed. You wonder if there's still somewhere in you, under all the deadlines and calendar invites. Maybe the guilt isn't truth. Maybe it's just residue. Leftover pressure that doesn't know it's outlived its usefulness. The Stoics believed in apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from unhealthy passions, a kind of grounded serenity, not through denial, but through discipline of attention. You think about that now, not as an achievement, but as a practice, a decision to notice the guilt without obeying it. You sit back finally and let the discomfort stay. You don't try to push it away. You just watch it, like ants, like wind, like something that will pass if you stop feeding it. And in that stillness, brief, imperfect, you feel something else arrive. Not peace exactly, but permission. The house is quiet now. No emails, no Slack pings, no buzz of incoming reminders. Just a long, thin silence. And you thought you wanted this. A break, a moment to breathe. But now that you're here, something feels off, unsteady, like you've stepped out of a moving vehicle and your legs don't know how to stand still. You walk into the kitchen, open the fridge, close it again, not hungry, just looking for something to do, something to anchor you. Because when the noise fades, so does the scaffolding, the thing that held up the version of you that always had a purpose, a project, a next step. You've built so much of your identity around momentum, always going, always building. And now, in this unexpected stillness, you feel a question rise soft, but sharp. If you're not doing anything, who are you? It's a question that doesn't come with a neat answer. You sit on the floor, not the couch, not the desk chair, the floor, like you're trying to get closer to something real. And as you do, you feel it, that quiet anxiety underneath the busyness, the fear that without productivity, you don't have shape. You remember how just last week, someone asked what you've been up to lately, and your mind scrambled for something impressive to say. Not because they expected it, but because you did. Because silence makes you nervous. Stillness feels like a blank page you haven't earned the right to write on. In existentialist philosophy, there's the idea of authenticity estate, where you stop living for appearances and start facing your actual self. But that's harder than it sounds, because facing yourself requires letting go of the scripts, the achievements, the curated story. And that's terrifying. You've performed fine for so long that it's hard to tell where the performance ends. You think about Emily Dickinson, who chose to live in near total isolation for much of her life, writing poems she never intended anyone to read. She once wrote, "The soul should always stand ajar." You think about that now, how hard it is to stay open when you're not being watched, when you're not being praised. You lie back on the floor. The wood is cool beneath your shoulder blades. A part of you wants to get up and check your phone, not out of need, just to feel tethered again, to feel visible. But instead, you let the urge pass. You stare at the ceiling and realize this is what emptiness feels like. Not a void, not a crisis, just the absence of noise. And maybe that's okay. Maybe this version of you, the quiet, unproductive one, isn't less real. Maybe they're the one who's been waiting underneath the to-do lists, the one who feels awkward in their own stillness because they haven't been given space to exist. You think, what would it mean to be enough, even when you're not building anything? You don't have the answer, but in this pause, in this breath, you start to believe the question matters more than progress. more than metrics, more than the curated life. You're not a task list. You're not a career path. You're a person messy, tired, unfinished, and still entirely worthy, even now, especially now. You're good at being useful. You know how to fix things, fill in, pick up the slack. You answer texts quickly. You follow through. You anticipate needs before people even speak them. You wear competence like a second skin, and people notice. They say things like, "I don't know what we'd do without you," and you nod half smiling, pretending it doesn't mean more than it should. But it does, because somewhere along the way, usefulness stopped being something you did. It became something you were. You think about how strange it is, how uncomfortable you feel when you're not being helpful, how you rush to offer solutions even when no one asked, how silence in a conversation makes you itch to contribute. Like presence alone isn't enough, like being just a person is somehow less. You laugh it off when people call you a workhorse or a machine. You know they mean it as a compliment, but deep down, it hits a little too close. You once read that Alan Watts, the philosopher who introduced much of Eastern philosophy to the West, had a daily ritual of doing absolutely nothing for an hour. No music, no reading, no talking, just being. He believed identity became clearer in stillness. You've never really tried it, because stillness terrifies you. What if there's nothing underneath the doing? What if, without all your roles and responsibilities, you don't even know who you are? In modern culture, you've noticed how often people introduce themselves by what they do. I'm in marketing. I'm a developer. I'm building a thing. But when was the last time someone said, "I'm learning to rest," or "I'm trying to be more whole"? You can't remember. It's hard to separate your self-worth from your productivity when you've been rewarded for it your entire life. Gold stars, good grades, promotions, praise. They all tied your value to your output. And now without those markers, you feel unmoored. You wonder, if I stopped being impressive, would anyone still care? It's not a dramatic question, just a real one, quiet and persistent. You feel it in the way you check your calendar, even on weekends, in how you offer to help even when you're running on empty, in how hard it is to receive help yourself. You don't want to be seen as lazy or needy or worse, forgettable. And that's the hardest part. The fear that if you stop being useful, you'll vanish. But deep down, another part of you is asking for something else. Not admiration, not approval, just rest. Just the chance to be someone without a function. Buddhist teachings often talk about non-self, the idea that we aren't fixed identities, but flowing, shifting awareness, that clinging to any single definition of who you are causes suffering. You start to wonder if maybe you've clung too tightly to this one, the reliable one, the doer, the strong one. You've built a solid structure, but maybe it's time to let some light in. You stare at the window. The late afternoon light is soft against the wall. No one is asking anything of you in this moment, and still you brace. Maybe that's the work now. Not more output, not better performance, just learning how to exist without always being the solution. You whisper a truth you've been avoiding. I don't want to be useful all the time. and it feels like a confession, but also finally like a start. You didn't plan to slow down today, but here you are. No to-do list in your lap, no article open in another tab, just you, breathing, a little uneasy, a little relieved. There's nothing remarkable about the room. It's the same light filtering through the same curtains, but it feels different now, like the air isn't asking anything of you. You're starting to realize that maybe that's the point. Maybe the deepest kind of rest isn't about escaping, but about remembering that you are not a task, you are not a deadline, you are not the sum of how useful you've been. You are already whole even here, even now. That thought doesn't come easy. Your body still twitches for purpose. Your brain still runs background scans. What did I forget? Who needs me? What's next? But something softer is growing underneath all of that, a kind of quiet defiance. You whisper it without meaning to I'm allowed to just be. You think about the Taoist idea of wu-wei, actionless action, the state where you're so in harmony with the flow of things that effort becomes unnecessary. It's not apathy, it's trust, in timing, in enoughness. You once read that the poet Mary Oliver used to spend entire afternoons lying in a field, watching the clouds shift across the sky. She called it my real work. You didn't understand that when you were younger. Now it feels like a lost language you want to relearn. You shift your weight. The couch groans softly under you. There's no music playing, no timer running, and you don't need one. Because in this stillness, something inside you exhales. It's strange how radical this feels. To not be striving, to not be proving, to not be collecting gold stars for your soul. You're not quitting life. You're just stepping off the hamster wheel for a minute. Just enough to remember what it feels like to be a person, not a project. The question floats up again. What if you've always been enough, and it was the noise that made you forget? There's no immediate answer, but you're starting to trust the asking. You run your fingers along the seam of the blanket. You feel the rhythm of your own breath, and for once, you don't rush to turn it into something. You're not trying to become anything tonight. You're just being who you already are. And maybe that's the most sacred act of all. The room doesn't say much now. It just holds you quietly, without asking who you were today, or what you didn't finish. There's a kind of peace in that. No questions to answer, no roles to play. Just the hush of evening light slipping out through the window, the hum of appliances winding down for the night, and the gentle weight of your body soft against the mattress or the couch or the floor, wherever you finally decided to stop trying. You don't have to earn this stillness. It's yours, whether or not you replied to every message, whether or not you reached your goals, whether or not you felt like enough today. The quiet doesn't judge you. It holds space for you. The version of you that forgot and remembered and forgot again, that tried, that paused, that maybe doubted for a little too long. Even now, even here, you're allowed to be, not for what you've done, just because you're here. So let the night do what it does best. Let it take the weight from your shoulders without asking questions. Let it darken the sky without needing your permission. And let yourself rest, not because you've finished everything, but because you're already enough, exactly as you are, exactly like this.